Okay, no. Excellent. Good morning. My name is Dadisi Najib. I'm the hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works, and Cerise Waters is our clerk. Did I say that correct, Cerise? I'm sorry. Is it Walters?
Waiters.
Waiters, sorry.
Waiter. That's okay. Thank you.
My apologies. Okay, so this hearing is being recorded via Zoom and will be available through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website at sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there is no sign-in sheet. So if you'd like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice. The hearing, the public hearing today being held is to consider 3 items. And they are order number 206911 to consider an appeal from the property owner for the fine issued for illegal pruning of 2 street trees adjacent to 106 Pfeiffer Street. Hearing order 206912 to consider an appeal for the property owner for the fine issued for illegal pruning of 6 street trees adjacent to 2800 Jones Street. And the third is for hearing order 206914 to consider an appeal from the property owner for fine issued for the illegal removal of 4 street trees adjacent to 759 Lakeview Avenue. So my job today as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing items, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to our director, and the director will make the final determinations. Once the director's determinations are made, the department will notify you of them if you have provided contact information. The hearing will proceed as follows for the number of cases. I will ask Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. Then I will allow the property owner or the appellant to speak. Then if there are any members of the public or witnesses who wants to speak, they can do so at that time. The department will address any comments, not really like rebuttals, but if there are any comments that they need to respond to or questions, they'll do that then. Then we can allow the property owner or appellant to make any rebuttals if they have any. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. Our clerk will monitor the time for all speakers and will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds left. If you are a party or witness to this proceeding, I will call on you to speak. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let us know before you speak, and you'll have a standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. And if you are a member of the public or witness who wants to speak, wait for me to call for public comments, then use Zoom's raise your hand feature if you're on a computer to put yourself in the queue to speak or ask your question. If you're dialing in on your phone, you would use *9 to indicate you're raising your hand. When it is your turn to speak, I will recognize you. If on your phone and you're muted, press *6 to unmute yourself. So once again, that's *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute yourself. If you'd like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know again before you speak. And you'll have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. And then any comments or questions should be addressed to me and not to the department's representative or the applicant. And if you are unable to finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of this hearing. And you would send that through what would that go through? The SF Public Works, Bureau of Urban Forestry, Cerise?
Yes, I did type it in the chat. It would go to urbanforestry@sfdpw.org.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that's it. If I feel any questions are warranted, I'll ask the questions. After all comments are completed, I will close the hearing order number each item. So I think we're ready to begin. I will now begin the hearing. Order number order 206911. Public Works, can you make your presentation?
And Ms. Hearing Officer, before we
Yes.
begin with the presentation, there is item number 2 on the agenda, which is open for public comment. If there are any things that they'd like to have in the recording that are not related to today's hearing.
Okay, yes, I skipped that. Members of the public may address the hearing officer on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. So is anyone here not wants to make a public comment that's not on this hearing agenda? Anyone present? Okay. So we're going to item 3 now, hearing order 206911. May I ask Public Works to make their presentation?
Hi, good morning. This is Sarah Stacy. Can you hear me and see my screen?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Hi, good morning. Again, my name is Sarah Stacy. I am the representative for the Bureau of Urban Forestry this morning. Thank you for everyone's attendance. Today is August 17th. This is an administrative hearing. As the hearing officer has explained, to review, we have 3 cases to review. My role today is to present our staff findings for each case and provide a brief explanation for why we issued the fine or violation. I have a short presentation, if I could have your patience, please. It will provide a little bit more information about Article 16, our tree ordinance, as well as a little background information to explain what correct pruning is, what excessive pruning is, and some of our regulations that are part of the urban forestry ordinance. So a tree ordinance establishes authorization and standards for addressing a wide range of issues regarding trees, which make up the urban forest. San Francisco's tree ordinance is codified under Article 16 of the Public Works Code. And this ordinance was enacted to protect and realize the optimum public benefits of trees and to also emphasize their importance as green infrastructure. So we all know that trees provide many environmental benefits. These include shade, stormwater capture. Their canopies help reduce particulate matter. They add beauty to our neighborhoods. They add traffic calming. There's a lot of benefits they add to our city. They add beauty to an otherwise, gray, hard concrete infrastructure. And so we have to recognize their importance to the city. With a growing population, the greatest threat to the urban forest is actually people. Trees live in a tough urban condition. Humans damage trees through neglect. We have cars that run over trees. Soil is compacted by our footsteps and by construction. And we also remove trees in order to construct new buildings. And we impose our needs on trees through the act of pruning. Whether that's pruning for a view, pruning for clearance for vehicles, we have to alter trees to meet the needs of our environment. But also pruning in itself is an injury, and I will talk about that more in a little bit. I want to just spend a little bit of time reviewing some of Article 16, some of the ordinance sections. This is section 808 and outlines the protection of trees and landscape material. It makes it illegal to injure or destruct a tree, and that could be a street tree, a significant tree, or a landmark tree. So this part of the ordinance makes it unlawful for any person to intentionally or maliciously or through negligence injure or destroy a tree. Some of these subsections, I'm going to read these. Bear with me. Thanks to your patience. In addition to the penalties set forth in subsections A and B above, the director may require any person who removes or destroys a tree in violation of the provisions of Article 16 to pay for each tree removed or destroyed a sum of $10,000 or the tree's replacement value, whichever is greater. So this section of Article 16 empowers our staff to issue fines and violations for the amount of 10,000 or what we consider the appraised value of the tree, whichever is greater. Second paragraph, the director may require any person who injures a tree in violation of the provisions of Article 16 to pay a sum of money equal to the diminishment of the tree's value. And that is established by the Guide for Plant Appraisal, the 10th edition. And then finally, where an abutting property owner removed a street tree or trees without obtaining a permit, the department shall require that the property owner plant a replacement street tree or trees with total diameter 6 inches above ground that is equal to or greater than the total diameter of the street tree or trees removed. Basically, this is saying that for any protected tree removed, you're going to be required to replace it with the equal amount of inches that was removed. This is Article 16, Section 806. And basically what this section puts forth is that a removal permit is required to remove any protected class of tree. And that would include street trees, significant trees, and landmark trees. This is Article 16, Section 808, and it outlines the requirements for the protection of trees. This section of code was put into law in 2015, and it makes construction projects responsible for protecting trees during construction. And then a definition that explains what it means to injure or cause injury to a tree. This can include all kinds of things, such as cutting, carving, painting a tree, knocking over a tree, such as by an automobile, attaching things like rope, wire, nails to a tree, posters, setting fire to the tree, burning trees, and then also pruning, which in and of itself is considered an injury. This can cause a tree to decline. So we also include in the definition of injury pruning. This is a lot of text here. I'm not going to read all this, but again, Article 16 empowers the urban forestry staff to issue violations and fines for the removal of trees that are protected without a permit and also for excessive pruning. So we are able to fine violators the amount of $10,000 or the tree's replacement value. So in summary, Article 16, trees are more than just beautiful additions to our urban environment. They provide an essential asset to our ecosystem, and they provide a host of benefits. A permit is required to remove any street tree, significant tree, or landmark tree. It is illegal to injure a tree, and injuries can include excessive pruning and malicious acts like nailing objects to trees, and also can include negligent acts like vehicular accidents. An illegal removal of a tree requires replacement with the equivalent inches in total diameter of the tree that was removed. And then finally, I just want to emphasize it's the property owner's responsibility to know the law, and ignorance is not an excuse. So I'm going to just spend just a few minutes briefly talking about a little bit of the science behind tree pruning and some of the best management practices, and why this is important to maintaining tree health. So some of the best management practices for pruning state that no more than 25% of the tree canopy should be removed during a given growing season. So removing more than 25%, the reason why that is harmful is that it removes the foliage, which is basically the source that allows the tree to photosynthesize and create energy for itself. So removing more than 25% can harm that tree and hurt its health. And then a second general guideline is that hitting cuts and cutting back to a branch that is less than 1/3 to 1/2 the size of the main branch is just really a poor practice. And there are a couple other sometimes ways we see trees pruned that are kind of improper. And that's why it's always important anytime our staff receives a call about a pruning inquiry or pruning request, and they cannot wait for the city's maintenance schedule, we emphasize that you need to hire a certified arborist. And certified arborists are the professionals that are familiar with the pruning standards, the industry standards that are set for the tree's safety and health. So these are some illegal practices, topping trees. As you can see in this picture, 100% of the foliage was removed, and cuts were made indiscriminately across the top of the tree, just kind of at any height was chosen. It was kind of just like a haircut was chosen. The tree was just cut off right, the even amount across the top. Indiscriminately cuts were made. This is very harmful to the tree. It hurts its health. You removed all its foliage for that tree to do photosynthesize and create energy for itself. It puts a lot of stress on the tree. This image that I'm showing here shows an example of a stress response. So after all that foliage is removed, the tree puts out a flush of growth, and it's a stress response. You know, it's gotta put out these buds of growth to try to, you know, maintain itself, to create energy for itself. So this doesn't necessarily mean like no harm was done. This is a stress response. And sometimes if this is done over and over, and sometimes just once, this can kill the tree, the topping cuts. This is another image. It shows weakly attached rapid new growth. Again, those new shoots are stress response growth coming out from the latent buds. In all these branches, if you don't go back and structurally prune the tree to restore it, these branches can fail down the road and in the future. So this just becomes a maintenance headache. Once trees are improperly pruned like this, it takes a lot of resources to restore this tree. Just another reason why improper pruning is bad, especially topping. Again, if the tree is not restored through structural pruning, you can have kind of this tangle of branches grow back and establish themselves, and these branches are susceptible to future failures and limb failures. So it's just in general a very bad practice. It creates a lot of maintenance needs, and the city actually has found itself having to deal with a lot of this as property owners were once in the past responsible for tree pruning. And then just a few more photos. Here we see improper pruning where there were branches that tore out, leaving these kind of scars and openings, these wounds where the tree's trying to seal back over this, but these are entry points for pathogens and pests. So again, just to emphasize, there are two different things. Some people will say, well, the trees down at City Hall, what about those? Can I prune my trees like that? That's actually a very specific type of pruning called pollarding. It's mostly a cultural practice, mostly for aesthetics. It has historic background in Europe, where the trees were pruned that way to provide fodder for animals and also to create charcoal for fires. But again, it's mostly a cultural practice, and only certain species should be pruned this way. So it's not a practice that we do throughout the city. Only certain streets are pollarded. California is one of them. And again, it's only certain species. The London plane tree on California, those are pollarded. This type of pruning is very resource intensive. The trees have to be pruned that way every couple of years, and it requires a lot of maintenance. Some feedback we get is, well, I pruned that tree because I was worried about it touching the utility lines, the wires. I was, worried about fire and safety concerns. Just to provide a little bit more explanation, PG&E is responsible for maintaining the vegetation clearance from high voltage lines. Those are usually the lines that are greater than 35 feet tall. They're between 35 and 45 feet. And again, they're the high voltage lines, and PG&E maintains that clearance. From the city's perspective, the street trees can safely touch, as you can see here in the photo on the right, the low voltage communication lines. The trees can grow around those safely. They can have contact with those lines. We want to prune the tree so there's not a lot of abrasion or stress on the lines or strain. So certainly we can always come take a look if there's heavy strain, but trees can grow up and around those lines and safely have contact with them. So the scope of work would never be for the city to top or prune the tree to sit below the low voltage communication lines. And to transition, I just want to talk a little bit about Street Tree SF. This is the city's tree maintenance program. This was put into legislation and approved in 2017. July 2017, all the street trees became the responsibility of the city to maintain them and to also make sidewalk repairs for tree-related root damage. And so as part of this maintenance program, we developed a pruning schedule based on a citywide census of all the street trees. We identified areas where trees were in the worst condition, and slowly we are working through each of these grids throughout the city, kind of patchwork, but based on priority to complete a pruning cycle. And once that's established, all the street trees will be pruned every 3 to 5 years. So we have made some progress. There's still a lot of work to do, but we have both an internal crew and contractors conducting pruning on the street trees as part of Street Tree SF. More than a quarter of the total tree maintenance needs have been met by the contractors and our internal teams. More than 30,000 trees have been pruned, and we've removed more than 3,000 trees that were either dead or hazardous. We do provide some outreach and information. We put out door tags in advance of the contractor being in one of those grid areas. So property owners or renters should see these door knockers on their doors. We do often get calls to our department asking about when we're coming, or they receive a door knocker and they call us to inform us that they want to opt out because maybe they've hired their own arborist, certified arborist, and they want to continue to have them prune the tree. And there are many ways to get in touch with our department. People can make service requests through 311. You can contact our department directly. We have a main phone number, and then also the urban forestry inbox. You can always email and ask us questions. So thank you again for your patience during that presentation. I'd like to start now with order number 206911. This is for an appeal from the property owner for the fine issued for illegal pruning of 2 street trees adjacent to 106 Pfeiffer Street. And we issued a fine for the legal pruning in the amount of $4,460. This image shows the 2 trees that we issued the violation for. It includes 2 ficus trees on Pfeiffer Street. Here you can see them adjacent to the yellow building. Excuse me. And the tree on the right that you can see, you could almost consider this a removal. It almost looks like a stump. I would say it looks like a stump. 100% of the crown, the tree was removed. I would find it possibly unlikely that this tree is going to put out new growth, or it will take a long time for it to do so. In the here's the tree on the left, and you can see some of the improper cuts, I would say not made by a professional, a certified arborist, that were made to actually facilitate the implementation of putting up the scaffolding for the construction project here. So this should not have happened. This property owner should have contacted us if they had questions about the trees and the need to put up scaffolding. We would have told this property owner that they needed to protect the trees during construction and that they needed to hire a certified arborist to conduct any pruning to help them put up the scaffolding. And then this is just a final last photo of the tree on the left. Again, those improper pruning cuts, you can see how the bark was ripped out and there are like stub cuts left on that tree. So to be consistent with other cases, we issued the fine for the legal pruning of 2 street trees. And I'll close there. Thank you.
Thank you, Public Works, for your comments and your presentation. Is the appellant here?
Can you use your raise your hand feature, please, if you are here for this case? Thank you.
We'll give them a few minutes. I know sometimes this technology is tricky.
Right. It shows that you are unmuted now. Can you speak and state your name, please? Good morning. Are you the representative for 106 Pfeiffer Street? Can you state your name, please?
This is Hearing Officer Najib. I'm not hearing anything.
I am not either. They unmuted, but they're not speaking. Okay, I don't see. Yeah, okay. Okay, I don't see any other hands at this time.
Okay. Are there any public comments on this item? Maybe while we're waiting for them to get connected. If there are any witnesses or members of the public that want to speak on this order. Cerise, what do we usually do in this situation?
If they have any testimony they'd like to send, they can send it into our urban forestry inbox. Other than that, I'm not sure. I have unmuted them and I lowered the hand and they put the hand back up. So someone is there. They're there, but I'm not certain what's happening.
Are they able to write anything in the chat?
Yeah, let me send a message.
For all other participants, thank you for your patience. We just, sometimes technology doesn't always work the way we need it to. So thank you for your patience in waiting. I did want to add that I've had a chance to review all of the letters that were received, the letters from the appellate, property owner, and witness letters. So You should know that.
Ms. Najib, I had no response other than they just keep raising their hand, but I did send a message in the chat as well.
Okay, if it's okay with you and our Bureau of Urban Forestry, if they stay on the call when we've heard the other ones, if they want to come back, should I not close this one out just yet, or what do you think?
If there are no public comments, then you can close this out, and then at the end of the hearing, we can
Then we can
see
come
if
back.
they're able to speak at that time.
And review it. Okay, that sounds fair. Okay, so at this moment, I'm gonna go ahead and close out the order number 206911 at 106 Pfeiffer Street. And we'll revisit it before we end today's hearing. Okay. Next up is hearing order number 206912 to consider an appeal for the property owner for fine issued for the illegal pruning of 6th Street trees adjacent to 2800 Jones Street. The fine levied for the illegal pruning is $13,380. And I'd like to ask Public Works to proceed and present the case. To speak first. Thank you.
Hi, this is Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. Again, this is order number 206912. An appeal from the property owner for the fine issued for the legal pruning of 6 street trees adjacent to 2800 Jones. And you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. We issued this violation for the excessive or illegal pruning of 6 ficus trees. Here they're shown at the property of 2800 Jones. This shows the row of 6. The image on the top part of the screen is from Google Street View and is from the year previous, March 2021, which shows the ficus trees. I would state in, fine, fair condition. They're, kind of just as probably for, years and years, they've been just kind of rounded over and kind of pruned this way. And then in the image below, you can see the excessive pruning, close to 100% of the foliage removed and the topping cuts made in the image below, and that's from March of this year. I just have a photo of each tree. On the left is tree 1. You can see almost 100% of the foliage was removed, about 90%, and some of the stub cuts, hitting cuts left. And then tree number 2 on the right, again, almost all the foliage was removed. I'm not sure, what would be the reason to remove all this foliage and prune the tree this way. Was it for a view? I don't know why the trees would need to be pruned this way and why the scope would be identified for this. This is tree 3 on the left. Again, all these are kind of the same. Almost all the foliage was removed. Some topping hitting cuts made. Here you can see some very fine branches were left to grow out of the main branch that was cut back. Tree 4, one of the better looking ones. Some smaller limbs left up at the top, but heavily thinned out, almost all the foliage removed. And tree number 5, one of the better looking ones, not as worse as the others, but heavily thinned. And then tree 6 on the right is kind of the same as tree 4, 5, and 6. So we just want to emphasize that these hitting cuts and the excessive defoliation will stress these trees. It's not a scope of work that our staff would have ever approved if we had met with this company. The likelihood of bacterial and fungal infections in these cuts is likely and possible. And this coupled with our staff not giving consent for the scope of work warranted us issuing the fine. And so that's why we issued the fine for the excessive or illegal pruning of these 6 ficus trees. And just to emphasize as a last point that any stress response or like vigorous regrowth doesn't mean the trees are healthy. It's a stress response. And also pruning like this can leave the tree susceptible to future limb failures. So again, just to be consistent with other cases, we issued the fine for the excessive pruning of 6 street trees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to ask the appellant for the property located at 2800 Jones Street to speak or make your presentation.
Hello, my name is Cody. I actually representing Peninsula Tree Care. I actually went out. I'm just curious, were you able to receive the arborist letter that was submitted yesterday? Hello?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm here.
Okay, I'm just making sure that the arborist report that was submitted, I do believe it was yesterday or a couple days ago, was received by you guys.
Yes, please.
With the update on the trees, basically their health and all of that stuff as of right now. I'm just curious so I can go over it with you guys.
Yes, this should have been received and forwarded to the hearing officer, but she may not have it in front of her at this moment. Did you want to share your screen?
I mean, I don't have the report in front of me, but I figured if she had the report in front of her, and I'm sure it would be very hard to show. Actually, yeah, I could share my screen and show pictures of what the trees look like now.
Okay,
But it is indicated in the report that was issued.
Okay, give me just a moment to promote you to a panelist and then you'll be able to.
I'm just going to be able to show you from my cell phone the pictures.
Okay, just one moment. Now, once you come over, you will need to unmute yourself one more time. There you are.
So am I visible?
Yes,
now?
you're a panelist. You're not visible, but you should be able to start your video.
Gotcha. Okay. So basically, I mean, what it was is I went out and I visited the site after. This is something that Peninsula Tree Care has been doing for X amount of years. I would say upwards of 8 years. When they actually got to this site, and I do recall because I have been out there numerous times, these trees were vigorously pruned prior to them even taking on these trees.
Mr. Cody, I'm sorry, if you're not, your video is not showing. You'll need to start.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Okay. So basically I was stating these trees had already been previously pruned like this way before Peninsula got there. If you look at the pictures indicated in the report, also the pictures that were taken, you can see the size of the base of the tree and the growth of the actual stems on the tree. And San Francisco, we know I've been working in the city for a long time as well. The bases that big have large laterals that extend off. These are obviously a lot smaller. These have been kept small for a very long time. I know I've visited them multiple times when Peninsula trimmed them. I know the excess is sprouting. I get all that. These trees have came back great, except for tree number 1 and 2. They were definitely obviously aggressively pruned and haven't came back as well. So they basically took on a pruning that had already been done prior. The pictures that were supplied from you from 2021 were definitely not saying incorrect, but those trees had not been touched for I think it was around 2 years. So yes, the growth rate, as we know on ficus, is extremely fast. But those hadn't been trimmed due to restrictions and us not being able to work, or them not being able to work in San Francisco. So we're not stating that they weren't overpruned. Yes, they were overpruned, but in some areas they had to be aggressively pruned due to the overgrowth on a lot of those. If you look at a lot of the structure of these trees, you'll notice ficuses always grow straight up in a straight up line with everything. Yes, they have the outward growth because they're heavy, but a lot of these pictures that were taken, even in the pictures, obviously, where they were over pruned potentially, there's a lot of sideways laterals with a little bit of sprouting on, but it just shows how much they were brought back over time. This wasn't something that was just significantly brought down this year. I mean, yes, it looks more aggressive this year, but these trees were pruned down every year substantially. I mean, if you look at the pictures that you indicate brought to our attention with the large canopies, for this size of a tree, they were never rounded. They were always brought back in. They were crown reduced and thinned. That was just a couple of years of growth. And
30 seconds.
Anyways, I'm sure you guys are familiar with San Francisco trees, ficus trees. They're very aggressively growing. This is a picture here of one of the trees. I do believe that's tree number 4 or tree number 5. I mean, the canopies grow back great. They were overgrown. They're not trying to completely dismiss what happened, but they're just trying to at least get the fine reduced. And they will structurally prune over the next 2 years, and I can oversee it for them. I am a certified arborist. So I would close with that.
Thank you, Cody, for
you're welcome. Thank you.
for your presentation. I am looking at your letter now, so I do have that. I didn't thank you for sharing the photos of the current condition of the trees from your cell phone. That was very effective, because I didn't see them. I don't see them here in the attachments, but I do have your letter. And I appreciate your time and for coming out this morning. I think that's it. Public Works, did you have anything that you wanted to comment on before we close out? Okay, are there any witnesses present today or any members of the public that wish to speak on item number 206912 for 2800 Jones Street? Okay.
There are no hands at this time.
Okay, thank you. I'm not able to see everything from the phone. Okay, well, that being said, we're going to go ahead and close out order number 206912. Just a reminder to those present that we will, oh, Sarah? Oh, this is for the next one. Okay, just a reminder to those present that we will be notifying you via email. If you want to stick around and stay on the call, you can. Stay in the meeting, you can. But if you want to dismiss yourself, you're free to go. Okay, so thank you. Next up, we have order number, is it here? 206914 for the location at 759 Lakeview. This is an appeal from the property owner for fine issued for illegal removal of 4 street trees adjacent to 2201 16th Avenue. That's just awesome. Public Works, are you ready to make your presentation?
Hi, yes, this is Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. Sorry, excuse the typo on the slide. This is the order number 206914, and it is to consider the appeal from the property owner for the fine issued for the legal removal of 4 street trees adjacent to 759 Lakeview.
Oh,
And the violation that was issued was for the amount of $42,000. So yes, sorry again, sorry for the typo here, but the address is 759 Lakeview. The text is correct here, 4 subject trees in the fine amount.
Thank you for making the correction.
This slide shows a picture before the trees were removed. This is from approximately April 2019. Sorry, can you see my screen? April 2019.
Yes, please.
And this shows the 4 subject trees that are in the front yard property of 759 Lakeview. My little blue arrows though point to the 4 subject trees. We received a service request in November of 2021 that said vandalism, customer wants a callback regarding no permits. Someone is illegally trimming the tree at this time, this location, and very close to the power lines. So that was the service request we received. I don't believe we actually visited the site until April of 2022. Sometime is when we took photos of what happened here. These photos are from April 2022, and these numbers identify the 4 subject trees that were removed, 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're coast redwoods, and these are classified or protected as significant trees, meaning that they're on private property, but within 10 feet of the right-of-way, and they have to meet a certain size criteria. That criteria being 20 feet in height or more, 15 feet in spread or greater, or have a 12-inch diameter trunk or greater. And all these met those measurements and requirements, so they're considered significant trees and protected, and so they did require a removal permit. The right-of-way on Lakeview is 8 feet, and these trees were all measured within 18 feet of the face of curb. So the 10 feet plus 8, they were measured within that 18 feet. I pulled this image, this map image, just to show the 8 foot, where we got the 8 feet from. The 8 foot right of way is the public right of way along Lakeview. This image was taken from April 2022. This is one of the trees that was heavily pruned back, hardly anything left. And then you see 2 of the stumps behind the vehicle. Some additional photos that were taken, these arrows point to the trees that were removed, 3 of the 4. And you can see our measuring tape down in the bottom half of the screen that we identified that these trees are within that 18 feet. This slide is hard to see, but basically it's a screenshot of our appraisal sheet. This is a systematic method calculation, basically, to come up with an appraised value for each of the trees. It's based on a set of standards and guidelines. In the plant appraisal book, the 10th edition is what we base this on and input our recommendations in. And we believe we are very impartial here. We calculate the appraisal based on the diameter of the tree and the cost to replace that tree per inch. And then you also assess the tree's health and structure, and also deduct depreciation factors such as limit of growth, overall health, the tree form, water availability, and utility vegetation management. So because these trees, as you can see, were very close to high voltage lines, and one would say likely not planted in a suitable place, meaning there's kind of this principle of right tree, right place. And generally speaking, no one would ever plant a redwood tree here. That's not a reason that we would necessarily approve removal. But generally speaking, these trees aren't in the best site in terms of the context with the wires. And so we did consider that and include it in the depreciation factor that is calculated into this appraised value. So our external limitations and functional limitations was a deduction of 50% and 60%. And so through this formula, we come up with an appraised value, and that's how we determine the fine for the removal of these 4 redwood trees. And because a permit was not attained from our department and because they were significant, that's why we issued the fine for the removal of the four significant trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Public Works. Is the property owner or appellant on this call ready with their presentation? It's just.
Hello. Hello.
Hi there.
I am the property owner and I'm here with my associate and friend both, Nick
Can you
Morello,
state your name?
Toby Coates.
Okay. Go ahead.
So we, first of all, we never intended to remove any of the trees, nor was the construction company that worked on the house to get it ready for sale. They were given the job to paint the exterior. They were not given permission by me, and they were told by, I was told by them that they did get a permit. It wasn't until after the destruction of the trees, at which time I fired them, that we learned about the necessity for the permit, etc. We have a number of pictures we'd like to show you, and can we do that?
I would like to, my name is Nick Morello, and I'd like to give you a little background on this quick. On September 10th, 2021, my friend Toby, childhood friend, hired New Look Construction, California contractor, legal, checked them out, got a license, got no complaints. Having no experience or knowledge of construction contract law, Coates made an advance payment of $10,000 to New Look to initiate repairs. She's not aware that state regulations forbid an advance payment of greater than 10%. Also, he started work without a contract. She didn't know there was a written contract. She just bought a contractor as the legal guy to do it. Over the next few weeks, New Look informs Coates that rot on the roof on the front of the house is caused by redwood branches overhanging the roof. And Toby asked him to trim the offended branches back. New Look then proceeds to severely cut back the foliage and branches of the redwood trees without consulting her. All of that, those photos that you have where they're all standing and they're all, that's what they trimmed based on his statement about it was damaging the roof and there was rot on the roof, which wasn't true.
It wasn't true.
It wasn't true. They never did any work on the roof to repair anything. Toby assumed that New Look had all the necessary permits because Garcia tells her so. Garcia is New Look Construction. And because she assumes that he follows all city regulations as a licensed contractor. The only permit that he actually pulled was for dry rot repairs.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
30
We
seconds.
really don't have enough time. How can we present what we're telling you? The first thing is that nothing's removed. The second thing is that all the trees are growing back. And the third thing is that the first largest tree closest to the sidewalk, that tree is been done by PG&E, and PG&E pretty much only, no one would touch that tree because it was too close to the wires. I did have someone come out and evaluate the trees. An arborist told us the trees were sick. This is not enough time. It's insufficient for us.
Okay, Ms. Coates,
Yes.
This is Hearing Officer Najib. You're
Hi.
welcome to, hi there. Did you submit a letter or anything? I didn't see anything in our,
Unfortunately, I thought the way I read what we were supposed to do is that if we were going to be absent, we had to submit it. We can submit everything right now if you'll allow it.
of course, if you can submit your comments, the rest of your comments to me, to us, the department via email, I'll take a look at it, okay?
It might take me a few minutes because there's a lot of pictures to go with it. We'll have to go somewhere. So I don't have a fax machine or scanner here. And we'll have to scan it all in and send you. My argument is that all these trees are growing back. I have evidence of that nothing was removed and that I never wanted it to be removed.
And the
Okay.
arborist report on the trees and the tree trimmer, Allen's Tree Service, another licensed guy.
Hired after the construction guy destroyed them.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Morello, if you all can gather your paperwork together as best you can and get them into the department today, I'll
I will
consider.
bring them down there
Can we do that?
and drop them off. How's that?
It's better to do it by email.
I would think so. I would think so.
The
that would be
problem
the
is.
Yes, at this time, it would be better to send it to by email because some persons are working remotely.
Okay, so the reason I had suggested the first one, I'm 75, I'm a technophobe, I can barely work the phone. But I'll get somebody to figure it all out for us and we'll get it to you today.
Okay, Mr. Morello, thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Coates.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Okay, hold on just a second. Don't hang up. Don't hang up.
Okay.
Public Works, did you want to respond to any of the items? Or to the appellant?
Yes, this is Sarah Stacy. I am asking questions to you as the hearing officer to direct back. We would like that documentation emailed. However, that being said, if they do wish to bring that in person, that is acceptable and fine. We are located at 49 South Van Ness on the second floor is where you would be able to drop it off.
Right, you know
Thank
where
you.
you are, yeah.
Okay, and then secondly, if you could, in any of your writings, make it clear of kind of the timeline of what happened with the contractor and then PG&E, because we have photos that again show that tree that was excessively pruned and then later it's just like a really tall stump.
Right.
And what the timeline of that was. And then finally, I just wanted to state for the record that generally with these illegal removals, we require a retroactive removal permit. And I just wanted to state for the record that we have received that. So we do have the retroactive removal permit application, and that generally we would require trees to be replaced in some kind of reasonable fashion that would fit that site context. And I'm stating this because our Article 16 code changed in February, but our staff notes basically outline and suggest that we're following the old code, and just the replacement trees that will be required here will be what can fit there on site. So approximately 1 to 2 trees will be required to be replaced. And all that will be part of the resulting decision.
Right. Right. We're aware of that. We're prepared to go put some trees in there.
I'd actually prefer that we allowed those redwoods to grow back. Is that possible?
Sarah Stacy, I'm not familiar with the trees. I've not been there personally myself. I feel like at least based on the images I've seen, I would think at least 3 of them would not grow back and are basically stumps. The tall one, I'm not sure, but it's also not really an appropriate siting. It's not an appropriate place for that tree. So I would suggest like starting over.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's what we always thought was the PG&E tree anyway, since we couldn't touch it. Thank you.
We'll do it.
Thank you. Sarah, thank you so much for your comments. Are there any members of the public or any witnesses that want to speak or address this order number? Okay, if not, I'm going to go ahead and close out this order number for 759 Lakeview Avenue.
Thank you all for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Before we close out for the day, we've heard 3 orders. And the first one, the appellant was present or is present and was unable to unmute their phone or to get their audio to work. So if you're still on the call, are you able to respond either via, Mirat Bajrami has their hand up?
Yes, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, thanks. I'm sorry for technical issues. I just switched from my phone to the computer. Oh,
Okay.
good. So yeah, my name is, can I start, please?
Yes, please introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Murat Bayrami. I'm owner of this house in 106 Pfeiffer Street.
Mhm.
And really, thank you so much for having me here on Zoom. Yeah, this is regarding to the tree in front of my house. I mean, also the tree that's not in front of my house that had not so much to do with that. The tree that was really in front of my house has been causing a hazard for some time. It was, broken branches, damaged and leaned directly into the house and damaging the house. Even the persons, my neighbors, were walking just to my entrance or around. They complained that the branches are falling on them. I even have few testimonies I can submit from people who complain, and they're really thankful that I kind of, solved the problem. Others tripped on these branches and debris that caused from the tree. And I called a few times in February and March in 2022 in urban forest in San Francisco to have a consultation about this, because I don't know so much about this stuff and I never got called back. I mean, witnessing just these damages in my neighborhood, even in that part of city, I mean, that caused by broken trees that damages cars and houses, safety, and worry about safety of my family and neighbors and preventing my house for further damage. Sometimes in the beginning of April 2022, I hired worker to prune the tree in front of the house and did some wall repairs caused by the tree up on the siding of the house from broken branches. And then I proceeded to painting and other stuff that I have in my house that was damaged by the tree. I really didn't know that pruning is illegal. I thought it's responsibility to maintain the city tree in front of my house that caused hazard to our family and neighbors. And all I did was just mitigate the conflict by pruning dangerous branches to remove the hazard, what is completely acceptable under regulations. And I preserve the tree structure. I mean, I love trees. I grew up in a side country overseas, and I am watering that to grow back, increase the value, I mean, of my house. It's just giving us some benefits like privacy or environmental benefit. And regarding to other tree that in a few branches or one branch, whatever, in front of the neighbor's house, 112 Pfeiffer Street, I do not live there, and we did not prune the tree. Was not a problem at all for our house or whatever. I don't know why I'm penalized for my neighbor's tree. I do remember the branches were hanging down along
30 seconds.
And I have also testimony from neighbors that I did not touch the tree. I just want to say I'm making $25,000 per year. It's really too much for me to pay this $2,300 for one tree. And I dispute that second tree. I did not touch that one. And my intention was just protecting neighbors, not to hit the branches. It was innocent mistake. And I really cannot afford with my low income to pay this. I hope you can understand my position. I'm looking forward to your suggestion. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Bajrami, thank you so much for your presentation. I just have a few questions. How long have you lived there?
I'm there back and forth. I still live overseas, but 8 years I'm there.
Okay, and Who did the pruning work
I
for
hired
you?
worker. I hired worker who did, and I thought he knows job. I think he overpruned a little bit. I hired worker that I pay him, for this. He said he knows how to do. I don't think. I
Okay,
he
not-
I learned a lot after that. I didn't know so much about this.
Okay. That's my only questions for now. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm gonna go ahead. and
Sorry, I can say I have more testimonies from my neighbors.
Oh,
regarding
okay.
this.
Okay, no, I'll call on them in just a second. Thank you, Mr. Bajrami.
Thanks.
Okay. Next up, can we have any witnesses or members of the public that want to address this item number? You'll have 3 minutes. I don't see any hands up.
No, there are no other hands at this time. Maybe they can make their testimony sent to urban forestry at sfdpw.org. And I
Okay.
did write that in the chat.
Okay, great. I did receive a few of the letters, witness letters from his neighbors that were in the original package received from our department. So that being said, Sarah, did you want to respond to anything that Mr. Bajrami, any points that he made?
No, I don't have any further comment or questions.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. All right, well, we've heard 3 items today, order numbers, and that concludes today's hearing, tree hearing today. All comments are completed. I will now close the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.